Hi, I'm Jim McConnery of Welch LLP. Businesses in Ottawa continue to adapt and evolve. Some businesses are flourishing. Other parts of the economy have suffered greatly. In both cases, local business leaders have demonstrated their resilience. For some, resilience means work from home. For others, connecting with clients virtually or doing things differently. In a constantly changing environment, how are business owners to make heads or tails of the situation? That is the purpose of the report we share today. It is the definitive survey of local business leaders that determines business confidence. It measures who is hiring, trends in real estate, and changes in how we work. Let us take you inside the results of the survey and share valuable insight to determine what an economic recovery will look like and what that will mean for you and your business.
Hello, and welcome to this special podcast for the launch of the 2025 Welch LLP Business Growth Survey. I'm Chris Meyers. I'm a partner at Welch LLP, the title sponsor of the Business Growth Survey. The Welch LLP Business Growth Survey remains one of the clearest signals of how our local business community is faring and what lies ahead for us. This year's results clearly reflect the backdrop of our challenging political and economic environment, with continued declines in overall business confidence. Still, within this complexity, there is a current of ambition. Many businesses continue to grow. Almost half of respondents reported increases in revenues, a sign of cautious optimism. This duality is what makes the insights in this year's survey especially valuable as a new federal government begins to tackle our serious economic challenges as a country. At Welch, we believe that strong communities need strong private sector ecosystems. And in Ottawa, our public-private balance remains a defining opportunity. If we want to build a more resilient and dynamic economy, we need to strengthen the foundation for entrepreneurship, investment, and private sector job creation. This year's findings make that more urgent and not less. To our partners, the Ottawa Business Journal, the Ottawa Board of Trade, and Abacus Data, and to our sponsors, including Pearlie Robertson Hill and McDougall, WCG Employment Ontario, and the Sprott School of Business, le Regroupement des gens d'affaires de la Capitale Nationale, I say thank you. Your collaboration continues to drive important conversations forward. As always, Welch LLP is proud to contribute to this work, not just through insight, but through action. We hope this report offers value to everyone invested in Ottawa's future, whether you lead a business, support one, or are simply curious about where our city is going next. Now it's time to hear from the editor-in-chief of the Ottawa Business Journal, Anne Howland, and the founder and CEO of Abacus Data, David Coletto. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks for that, Chris. I'm Anne Howland. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Ottawa Business Journal, and I'm here today to talk about this year's Welch Business Growth Survey. To set the stage a little, there's two components to the report. The first is our annual Business Confidence Index, which always has some very interesting results. And the second is a theme that changes every year. And this year we looked at what Ottawa businesses think are priorities or should be priorities for our new federal government. So to discuss the report, I'm really happy to be joined by David Coletto, the founder and CEO of Abacus Data.
Hi, Anne. How are you?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm great. Great to be here.
Awesome. So there's a lot to dig into, I think, on this report. Let's start with the Business Confidence Index, which is 6 questions that we ask respondents every year, which result in the index itself. And I think, I don't know about you, but I wasn't expecting much change back in January. Well, and then February and March happened, which is when we were in the field. And I think we've come up with some results that were a bit of a surprise. What did you take away from it?
Well, I think they were a surprise again if we were thinking about what things would be like at the end of 2024, but feels like the entire world has changed as a result of Donald Trump's reelection and then inauguration and everything that's happened around that. And I think it's reflective of the way that business leaders in our city are feeling, that we see in our confidence index a point at 91. So just to give viewers a sense of what that number means. Anything over 100 we view as generally positive. Sentiment towards business confidence in the city. Anything below 100 is lower, and at 91, that's the lowest it's been in we've done this for 13, 12 years, and only during 2020, at the worst moment of the global pandemic, do we see a number lower than that. So I think what we find right now in the business community in this city is a general sense of uncertainty. And with uncertainty about, what are the tariffs going to mean? Are there going to be tariffs? How big is the retaliation going to be at all? Leaves business leaders looking to the future with very little confidence. They don't know how to make sense of it. So on many of those measures you talked about, we see significant declines from last year on expectations of the future market, on confidence in the local economy. They're down substantially. Things like sales and and likelihood to hire, they're not down as much. So it does suggest that businesses are doing okay, but it's that future outlook that I think is worrisome to them. And we see a downward pressure on confidence right across the business community, and almost every sector we see big drops. So in technology, in construction and retail, they're down from where they were last year. Only professional services are basically holding in terms of their confidence of where we saw last year. So the big, not surprising outcome of all of this is one big word: uncertainty is really the prevailing view in the business community today.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we would have gotten much different results if we'd been out in the market in January, or even maybe around now when things are a little bit settled, maybe. But it's a good segue to the second part of the report, which is about what Ottawa businesses see as priorities for our new Liberal minority government. And I have to say, at OBJ, when we've asked commentators about, the effect of President Trump and his administration on Ottawa specifically, many of them told us that, oh, well, it's a pretty service-oriented economy, and so, we should be okay. But I think the results that we've seen in our survey might suggest that Ottawa businesses might think a little differently. What did you think of that one?
Yeah, not surprising. The outside view is not always the same as those feeling here. I think, again, that sense of uncertainty carries forward, right? I think there's I'll speak generally first, a general sense that, the federal government doesn't really understand the needs of small businesses. There's some concern about potential reductions in the federal public service that might have a negative effect on the city overall. And I think, when people are asked and businesses are asked, what should the priority be, particularly say like our high tech sector, there's a real focus on first, reduce as much regulation as you can, find ways of making our business climate more competitive, improving productivity, as well as just let us do what we need to do, get off our backs and let us grow our businesses and run them in a way that we as business leaders feel are the best way. And so I think that's really the signal that the business community is sending here in the city, is that, we're often overlooked. And at a moment like we're in, I think they're looking to the federal government for some leadership. And I think Mark Carney, the new prime minister, now representing a riding in our city, at least has signaled some of that in his early days. But I think the business community is going to still be in a wait and see kind of mode to see whether the policy backs up the rhetoric from Ottawa right now, from the federal government, I should say.
Yeah, it's a great point. You mentioned the size of the federal civil service, and obviously, that's a huge issue for Ottawa, for businesses in Ottawa. So I think that came out quite clearly in the results. But another interesting one was how the federal government has handled this disposal process for its real estate portfolio that it talked about initially back, like 2 years ago now. So there was one word there that really stuck out, I think.
Yeah, we created a word cloud in the report, and it's like slow, right? Overwhelming is the sense of it. Confused, incompetent, but slow is really the prevailing view. That when businesses think about what the government should be doing and how quickly they should be moving, I think there's quite a bit of dissatisfaction. Not a lot of positive words showing up in that word cloud right now, Anne.
Yeah. Another interesting one that we asked about was the perception of the Ottawa business community of the National Capital
Mhm.
Commission. And it wasn't super positive. And I'm just interested in your take on that. I'm just wondering if it's a bit in the context of the LeBreton Flats, Ottawa Senators hockey arena type of thing, or are there larger issues at play?
I think it's probably mostly related to the Ottawa Senators and LeBreton Flats process. That again, I think a lot of businesses in the city, business leaders are looking at that process and saying, "What's taking so long?" Right? We've been talking about this thing for a really long time, and there doesn't seem to be much progress happening. And oftentimes, the NCC is in people's crosshairs. They're seen as this kind of middling, not clear role. Yes, they're really a real estate organization, but they have a lot of jurisdiction, and I think that's probably the biggest driver. But I think there's some other things. I think there's often confusion around decisions that the NCC makes when it comes to bike days or other kinds of events that they might be holding, and the way that they manage some of those assets that they have. But I think for the most part, this is about what I think the public and business leaders perceive to be the slow progress at LeBreton Flats.
Okay. We also asked a bit about what businesses think of many of the federal services and support for going global, which is obviously a big issue right now, particularly as many businesses maybe try to think beyond the U.S. market, which is our most obvious international market. But what I saw was that many businesses were perhaps unaware or don't think they need those types of services, and they didn't really think they were applicable to their specific situation. So that was a bit worrying to me, and I'm wondering what your perception was.
Yeah, and I think it's worrying in the sense that as a business owner myself, right, I'm often thinking about, is global expansion even something I can do? I think it starts with, for many, and keep in mind, many of the leaders that we interviewed for this survey are running smaller businesses. So they may not even believe they're in a place to be able to expand and sell globally. But many of them can, they just don't know how. And I think that's the role of an organization like EDC or other federal government, either crown corporations or departments that can help facilitate it. I think the biggest takeaway from the survey is just people as business leaders just don't know what's available to them. And that probably signals an opportunity to better communicate the programs that might exist and the ways that which a business can look at alternative markets. I think with the ongoing friction with the United States, that's going to be something that I think is increasingly important. And hopefully, as Mark Carney has signaled that by July 1st, we're going to see some interprovincial trade barriers reduced. That might create some new markets internally, but there's still that opportunity that exists to look for new markets outside of Canada that I think many businesses aren't aware of, but might be given some impetus to go out and explore.
Agreed. And you mentioned small business, and that was a notable result, I think. Like more than 80% of respondents said they didn't really think the federal government understood the needs of small business. So take us through that result a bit. What are small businesses seeing there? What's troubling them?
Yeah, well, I mean, 83% of respondents, of business leaders in our city said, they don't think that the federal government understands or supports small businesses at the federal level. And so I think that's a reflection of a few things. One is a federal government previously that I think many business owners and leaders felt really were making choices that were actually running against their interests in trying to grow their business. So whether that be tax policy, whether that be environmental regulations, you name it, I think people could point to a lot of things in those final years of the Trudeau government that they felt were much more barriers to success than accelerants to growth. And I think we see it in other parts of this survey that we did, right? When we ask respondents, do you want to see certain policies continued or not? Overwhelmingly, the business community in Ottawa is saying, let's get rid of that increase to the capital gains tax. We don't want to see the carbon pricing continued. And so one of the first things that the Carney government did was get rid of that. And then there's mixed views on the role that immigration's playing. And so I think, I take that as a sense that at least right now, the perception of business leaders in the city is that at least the previous government, let's give the new government some time and credit to figure things out, didn't really get it and really wasn't thinking about how do we grow and catalyze. Mark Carney uses that word all the time. Catalyze all of the good ideas we have in Canada and in Ottawa among our small business community to really see that kind of growth, both in productivity and in just sheer size and scale and scope.
Yeah. And I think on the tech side, I thought that was interesting. Nothing really stood out to me, to be honest, as a result, except I think, as you mentioned, there's a bit of a desire for the public sector to back off, I guess, and let the private sector take the lead. And again, I was wondering if there was a bit of not much knowledge of some of the services and support that are available from the federal government on the high-tech innovation side, which is a huge portfolio federally. But I'm wondering if anything stood out there to you, and especially we asked a specific question about artificial intelligence. Of course, now we have a new, minister kind of in charge of that file. So the respondents seem to think that on the AI side, the federal government's role was maybe not as a leader, but as definitely a supporter, I guess. So on the high-tech side, did something jump out at you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first way, if you look at the report and you just look at the chart on how should the federal government support the tech community in the city, there's no one thing that pops out, which for me is at first a signal that even the business community isn't clear, like where should the federal government focus, which I think is also something for us to really think about, because it's hard for government to react if we don't really know what exactly we want. But it's a mix of things. It's cut some taxes and reduce some regulations. Let the private sector take the lead. Don't pick winners and losers. And think about the kinds of funding you're providing that incentivize investment in innovation and growth and allows that sector to grow. I think are all things that we heard. And on the question of AI, and whether the federal government should play a role in regulating it, we see mixed views, to your point, right? More people that we surveyed said, the federal government should take more of a supporting role. Almost nobody said it shouldn't be involved. But this split view of should it be a leading role, a supporting role, I think is one that I see some tension. And I see it in the public opinion as well, that including many small businesses, AI is still a relatively new thing. They're not quite sure how do they use it in their own business to increase productivity, to make things more efficient. But I do think, what we've heard from the new Carney government in these first few days, you're right, signaling that Minister Solomon is going to be the lead on this. Mark Carney talks about AI quite a bit, particularly in the context of improving government efficiency. I think we're on the cusp of maybe having a government that's a little more in touch on this one. And so we'll wait and see. But certainly the business community in our city isn't quite clear what the best path forward is. But AI, I think, is increasingly going to be seen as an important tool.
Maybe one last chunky issue to delve into. We asked the question, did members of the Ottawa business community think that the federal government invests in Ottawa as a national capital? And I thought that was really interesting, and quite an astounding amount said no. So that's a bit upsetting, but I guess I was thinking about it and what does it really mean? And what would we expect a federal government to do, or kind of to your point recently, like, do we even know what that might look like?
Well, I think we all live in this city. We know the potential here. I think we at times underestimate or don't appreciate the benefit of living and running a business in the national capital. On the other hand, I think we have some legacy remembering the convoy and what that did to businesses, particularly in the downtown area. I think there is still some ill will towards some of the federal government's back to the office policies and the revitalization of downtown that remains, I think, a concern, particularly for businesses that do operate in the center of the city. But I think more broadly, I think we also have this like complex in Ottawa where we don't like to speak super highly of what the city has to offer, but we see the federal government as one of the major employers in the city, major holder of assets, who can play a better role in building a really thriving community. And I think we'll see, having again a prime minister based and representing a part of our city. My hope is that maybe that changes. But I know we have a mayor who wants to build a good relationship with the federal government. and a business community that's willing to work together. So I'm going to be the optimist here, Anne, and say maybe things are going to get better. And next time we ask that question, maybe that 74% who said no will drop down as maybe some things get done.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great overview of our report. Lots to delve into, some super interesting results this year. So I want to thank you, David, for your time. And once again, I'm Anne Howland. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Ottawa Business Journal, and I'm happy to throw it over to Amanda Baressi from WCG.
On behalf of WCG Services, Employment Ontario in Ottawa and the Eastern Collaborative Region, we are so pleased to be a part of this very important survey. The Welch LLP Business Growth Survey provides important insights into local business priorities and, in particular, hiring needs and intentions as reported by the respondents. In this region, our network of 22 Employment Ontario providers connect with approximately 20,000 job-seeking candidates per year whom are actively pursuing employment and ready to work. Connecting candidates to employers and creating opportunities for long-lasting employment relationships is the age-old challenge, and we believe this is an opportunity for Employment Ontario to offer a centralized point of access to the services and resources available to businesses to connect them to candidates. We look forward to connecting to build a thriving workforce that reflects our community. Reach out to us at eoworks.ca to get started.
Hello, I'm Carl Poirier, President of the Board of the Regroupement des gens d'affaires de la Capitale Nationale, the RGA. This year's Welch Business Growth Survey paints a sobering picture. Confidence among business leaders at its lowest in 4 years, and we should be all concerned. On pensait qu'après la pandémie, le plus dur était derrière nous. Mais en 2025, l'incertitude règne plus que jamais. Le retour de Trump, les tensions commerciales, mais surtout, ici même, un manque criant de mesures concrètes pour soutenir nos entreprises. L'économie a besoin d'oxygène maintenant. L'incertitude freine la prospérité. Et sans prospérité, il n'y a pas de plein d'emploi, pas de service public solide. Mais un changement est en marche. Les gens d'affaires de la région, avec les maires d'Ottawa et de Gatineau, ont lancé un mouvement pour abolir les barrières interprovinciales. Ça commence à bouger, à Queen's Park et ici même à Ottawa. Il faut garder le cap. Last point. 52% of respondents believes that bilingualism is important in business. At the RGA, we see things differently. The right to be served in French is fundamental, but more than that, it's a strength. It's a tremendous business opportunity. The RGA will always continue to champion that message loud and clear. Merci à Welch LLP et à The Ottawa Business Journal pour ce portrait nécessaire. Merci et bonne journée.
That concludes this special podcast for the launch of the 2025 Welch LLP Business Growth Survey. Thank you to all of our guests and to all of our sponsors. To access a digital download of the report, please visit www.ottawabusinesssurveyreport.ca. Thank you all for watching and spending time with us today, and goodbye.